The story is inspired from a true incident which happened last year in Florida. A couple's dispute over prenuptial agreement turned violent. More about the case after the story. That night, 4 years ago, I thought I'd found the person I was destined to marry. Everything about Olivia seemed genuine and warm, and I trusted that she felt the same way about me. Those 4 years together have been a cascade of intense emotions. We clung to each other's every word, declared our devotion openly, and made grand plans. Even my older brother Mark, who was the practical one in the family, was convinced we were meant to be. He'd often tease me saying, "You two act like you're in a movie. Just don't expect the soundtrack to play in the background when reality hits." I would laugh and shrug it off, never imagining that reality would come crashing around us in such a brutal way. You see, I come from a wealthy family with a long history in business. My relatives had watched fortunes dwindle in nasty divorces before, and they viewed legal safeguards as necessary measures. So, as our wedding date approached, my family began to murmur about a prenuptial agreement. Initially, I resisted. I loved Olivia, and thought her prenup suggested I didn't trust her. Mark was the one who finally sat me down and said, "James, it's not about distrust. It's about preserving what your parents built. Think of it like insurance. You hope you never need it, but you'll be glad it's there if something goes wrong." Reluctantly, I agreed to at least consider the idea, but I had to tread carefully. Olivia never liked discussing money, and there was a hint of insecurity that flared whenever she felt we were implying that she was in it for wealth. She was sensitive about trust issues, and any mention that sounded like doubt in her motives would lead to arguments. I tried to find the right time to bring it up, but time was running short. The wedding date loomed just weeks away, and the pressure to finalize everything was overwhelming. Our engagement party had been a grand affair, and all seemed fine on the surface. But a few nights after that celebration, I attended a business acquaintance's birthday party alone. Olivia had a migraine, so she stayed at home. At that party, I danced with an old friend, just an innocent sway to some lively music. Mark was there too, chatting with some colleagues by the bar. Nothing scandalous happened, but someone recorded a brief video of me dancing, laughing, and sharing a quick hug with this friend. They posted it online. Olivia's friend saw it, and within hours, Olivia was calling me repeatedly asking,
"Who is she? Why are you so close? Why didn't you tell me you'd be dancing with someone else?"
That conversation was our first big fight in a long time. She had always been somewhat insecure, but this time her voice trembled with a mix of hurt and anger. I tried to explain. "Olivia, it's not what you think. She's just an old friend from college. I barely kept track of her after graduation. It was nothing but a friendly dance." But she wasn't convinced. Her suspicions were fueled by her own self-doubt. She said,
"You're hiding something from me, I can feel it. Why else would you leave me at home and go dancing with someone else?"
In the midst of this tension, I made the decision to bring up the prenup. It felt like the worst possible timing, but I was cornered by my family's insistence and the looming deadlines for legal paperwork. I tried to be as gentle as I could. I told her, "Olivia, I need to discuss something serious with you. My parents are concerned about legalities involving their estate. They asked me to consider a prenuptial agreement." As soon as the words left my mouth, I saw her face cloud over. She stood up abruptly, her entire posture taut as if bracing for a physical blow. She sounded breathless as she replied, "So that's it. You plan to walk away whenever you want, and this prenup will protect your precious fortune." I reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "It's not that. It's just a safety measure. It doesn't mean I don't want a life with you." Instead of trying to calm down, Olivia stormed out of the apartment, refusing to engage any further. I didn't see her for the rest of the night. The next day, she came back, still fuming, her eyes red from either crying or lack of sleep. She said, "I'm done talking. If you need a contract to trust me, I'm not the wife you're looking for." Over the next couple days, we had short, hostile conversations. I felt torn. My father kept calling me, urging me to finalize the documents, while my fiancé was drifting further away. Then came the evening I'll never forget. Olivia was invited to a friend's bachelorette party. She went, drank more than she should have, and stumbled upon that video again. Probably edited to look more suggestive than it really was. Someone apparently told her, "Look how cozy James is getting with that woman. Maybe he's having second thoughts." I found out later that Olivia rushed back to my place, seething, convinced I was plotting to end our relationship the moment it became inconvenient. She hammered on the door, shouting for me to open up. By coincidence, Mark was there with me. We were discussing the prenup quietly, trying to figure out how to placate Olivia. The second she saw me, she launched into a string of accusations.
You're a liar, James!
She screamed.
You never loved me! You just want me under your thumb until you tire of me!
"Olivia, calm down. You're not thinking clearly." I pleaded, but she was too far gone. Mark rushed forward to restrain her, and she bit him in a manic rage. I froze, unable to process the violence coming from the woman I'd loved for 4 years. She was arrested that night. Mark and I gave our statements to the police, more out of shock than any real intention to press charges. But in our state, domestic violence is taken seriously. Olivia spent the night in a holding cell, and by morning she'd been released on bail. In July 2024, just days before their wedding, a Florida couple's dispute over a prenuptial agreement turned violent, leading to the bride-to-be's arrest. Late on Sunday night in St. Petersburg, 26-year-old Molly Rose Hogan allegedly attacked her fiancé, striking him multiple times. According to police, the victim's brother intervened but was bitten by Hogan. Alcohol was reportedly a factor in the altercation. Hogan was charged with domestic battery and simple battery before being released. A judge ordered no contact between the parties. Despite the incident, the couple's wedding registry remained online, still seeking contributions for their celebration.
Did you subscribe? No? Oh my God, hit that subscribe button now. This story is inspired from a true incident which happened this year. 2 sisters started fighting at their father's service. More about the incident after the story.
My sister Nancy and I grew up in a very wealthy family. Our father was always working, so we barely saw him, but he made sure that we had every luxury that 2 girls could ever want. Nice cars, extravagant vacations, credit cards with no spending limits. Of course, that lifestyle went to our heads. It wasn't our fault that we never learned what it was like to struggle for anything. Yes, we were entitled, but whatever. We were lucky enough to be born into wealth, so we shouldn't feel guilty about it. Our father helped us get enrolled in 2 of the top universities in the country. Not so we could get a good education, but so we could land rich, well-connected husbands. I married Derek, the handsome heir to his father's oil company, while Nancy married Bob, an overweight loudmouth who just so happened to come from a family who built their fortune on electronics. Father was happy for both of us. We were living the lives that he had envisioned for us. Unfortunately, Nancy's life quickly changed. The electronics industry had taken a turn, and Bob's company hit a major roadblock. Their stocks nosedived, and their once mighty fortune quickly disappeared. Nancy, unable to live without constantly shopping, tore through their dwindling finances until she and her husband were in massive debt. I don't know what to do. Father has already given me 3 loans, and he's saying he can't afford to keep my family afloat anymore. She wanted me to feel sympathetic, but I couldn't. Our father was quite old now, and I hated to think that my sister was eating into our future inheritance just because she didn't know how to balance her own checkbook. It wasn't right. And the worst part was, I knew that Nancy blamed me for everything. She resented that I'd found a better, richer husband than her. I didn't really need an inheritance, but that's not the point. Maybe it'll be better if you stopped shopping so much, honey. No offense. That made Nancy furious. She always had such thin skin. How dare you! She stormed out of my house, muttering to herself. Good. I was done listening to her complain about nothing. Still, there was something that she said that I couldn't stop thinking about. Had Father really lost his fortune? That was unimaginable. He was so close to his deathbed, and I couldn't imagine that he'd die and leave me nothing. I had to find out for myself. That evening, I drove to my father's mansion. I hadn't been there in months. When I arrived, the maids directed me toward his room. Father was lying in bed, looking so much worse than the last time I'd seen him. His face was sunken and his skin had gotten yellow. "Nancy, is that you again?" "No, Daddy, it's me." He was surprised to see me. I really should have visited him more. I didn't want him to write me out of the will like our gay brother Nick. I helped him drink some water and acted like the loving, doting daughter. I asked him how his heart was doing. Not great. And what he'd been up to lately. Lying in bed, mostly. God, it was so depressing. Then I got down to the point. I asked him about his finances. I even mentioned what Nancy had told me. "Don't worry, dear. My finances are fine. I lied to her for her own good. You and your sister will be well taken care of after I'm gone." That's all I needed to hear. I was ready to leave then and there, let him die with dignity, when he asked me for help taking his pills. He had a whole tray of medications on his nightstand. Tons of meds, though they obviously weren't working to make him better. He pointed to the bottle of heart meds he needed to take. I grabbed the bottle and fished out a pill. That's when I noticed something weird. These weren't the right pills. I used to be anorexic back when it was trendy, so I knew a Tic Tac when I saw one. Someone had replaced his pills, and I knew exactly who it was. Nancy. She knew that he was lying about his finances and was trying to kill him off faster so she could get her inheritance. And as I looked at Father's sick, yellow face, I could tell that it was working. I was about to reveal her scheme when I stopped myself. Even if I hated what she was doing, I would still benefit too. It would be nice to get my inheritance faster. So I handed him the Tic Tac and watched him swallow. "I love you, Father." Then I left. 4 days later, we had the funeral. It was a grand affair. I got to show off my new black dress from Bloomingdale's. All eyes were on me. After the services, I pulled Nancy aside and whispered, "I know what you did." "I have no idea what you're talking about." 2 days after that, we were called in for the reading of the will. God, I was so excited. Spencer, Father's lawyer, sped through all the bequeathments that Father had given to his staff, and then he got to the important part. The deceased has stated that he wants both his daughters to live an equally comfortable lifestyle after he is gone. As such, he gives his daughter Nancy $50 million. And to Emmy, who was already well taken care of, he gives her his sailboat. A sailboat? I hated that stupid thing. It wasn't fair. I deserved half of that $50 million. Me! No, I deserved all of it, because I wasn't the one who frickin' killed him. I jumped out of my chair and dove at Nancy. I ripped her cheap-ass morning dress and tackled her to the floor. She fought back. She pulled my hair and clawed at my face. Father's butlers had to pull us apart, but not before Reginald, Father's driver, got caught up in our fight. I think he broke his arm. "She killed him! She switched his pills!" No one believed me, of course. They thought I was just being spoiled. Nancy looked me right in the eyes, smiling triumphantly. Fair is fair.
In January 2025, a funeral in Clearwater Beach, Florida, took a shocking turn when two sisters were arrested for fighting at their 95-year-old father's service. The altercation began after Kathleen, 66, delivered a eulogy that failed to mention Maureen's 24-year-old daughter. This omission sparked a verbal argument, escalating when Maureen, 60, chest-bumped Kathleen, who then pulled her sister's hair. Maureen retaliated by striking Kathleen's face. Captured on CCTV, the fight led to Kathleen's arrest for misdemeanor battery, while Maureen faced a felony charge due to Kathleen's age. Both women were later released but were ordered to have no contact.
This story is loosely based on a true incident which happened in Minnesota. More on it after the story. I was 26 years old, living in a bright apartment in the heart of the city. Naomi, my childhood friend and brand new police recruit, was my roommate. That particular Wednesday, everything seemed normal. Until Ryan Bennett showed up at my door unannounced. I had been seeing Ryan for several months by then. We initially matched on a dating app, where he was charming and seemed genuine. Up until that Wednesday. I only ever invited him over on weekends. So when he arrived midweek, I was immediately on edge. "Ryan?" I said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" He stepped inside, placing a small bottle of wine on the counter. "I missed you," he said with a crooked smile that made my heart skip a beat. "Is it so wrong for a guy to drop by and see his girl?" I poured 2 glasses of the wine and we started talking about everyday things. Naomi arrived home from her first day at the police station about an hour later. She walked in, spotted Ryan, and froze as if she had seen a ghost. I could tell something was wrong. Naomi wasn't the type to scare easily. After a few awkward pleasantries, Ryan stepped outside for a cigarette, and I followed Naomi into the kitchen. She grabbed my wrist tightly and whispered, "Olivia, you need to be careful. Ryan was at the station today. His own father was filing a report on him." I felt my stomach twist. "Are you sure it was him? Maybe it was someone who looked like him." My voice shook, betraying my concern. Naomi gave me a serious look. "It was definitely Ryan. I heard his name, Ryan Bennett. I couldn't get the full details, but his father was desperate to get the police involved. You need to stay away from him until we figure this out." Before I could process what she said, we heard footsteps in the hallway. Ryan walked back inside, casually tossing a cigarette butt into the trash and smiling. His presence filled the room with tension. Naomi made some excuse about needing to call a friend and disappeared into her room, leaving me alone with him. I spent the rest of the evening in a confused haze, watching him closely. He kept asking what was wrong, and I kept saying nothing, hoping that the wine would dull my anxiety. As the night wore on, I quietly observed how he avoided talking about his family, changing the subject whenever I mentioned them. Eventually, I pretended I had an early appointment the next day and asked him to leave. "I'll see you soon," before slipping out the door. The moment it closed, Naomi emerged from her room, looking concerned. She said, "Liv, talk to me. You know something's off, right?" I sank onto the sofa and stared at the door. He's never mentioned his family before. We've been together for months, and all I know is that his parents are divorced. That's it. But now his father reported him to the police. I don't know what to believe. Naomi sighed and sat beside me. I could look into it, but it would mean risking my job on my first week. I'm barely in the force, and I'm not sure what I can access without raising suspicion. She seemed torn between her duty and her worry for me. The next few days were a blur. Ryan texted and called me constantly, always cheerful and affectionate, as though nothing was wrong. He told me he wanted to take me somewhere special the following Saturday. I played along, trying to act normal. But inside, my head was spinning. On Friday afternoon, Naomi came home from work looking pale. She shut the door and turned to me, breathless. I dug a bit deeper today, she confessed, sitting down across from me at our tiny dining table. It's definitely about his stepmother. His dad reported Ryan for luring her away. That's the exact phrase he used, and for taking 2 valuable watches from their family estate. I stared at her, speechless. Luring her away? Apparently, Ryan's father suspects they're together somewhere, or that she stashed the watches for Ryan to sell. But none of this has been proven. There's not enough for an arrest warrant yet. It's a messy situation. My mind reeled with questions. I wanted to confront Ryan immediately, but fear held me back. Was I dating a con artist? On Saturday, Ryan insisted on taking me out for a fancy dinner downtown. I agreed, partly out of curiosity and partly because I wanted answers. The restaurant was dimly lit, the table set with crisp white linens. He looked sharp but tense, avoiding my eyes whenever the conversation veered too close to personal matters. When the entrees arrived, I gathered my courage. "Ryan," I said quietly, my heart pounding. "Is there something you're not telling me about your family? Naomi told me she saw your father at the station." His fork froze midway to his mouth. "What did she say?" he asked, voice icy. I took a shaky breath. "He accused you of taking a stepwife, your stepmother, and stealing some expensive watches. Is that true?" Ryan's eyes flickered with something unreadable. Anger, shame, or maybe fear. "My father is insane," he said, leaning forward, his voice low. "He's inventing stories because he can't accept the fact that his wife left him willingly. He's projecting all of his failures onto me." I felt a chill run through me. "So you're saying none of it is true?" "I'm saying my father will do anything to ruin me. It's complicated, and I shouldn't have to defend myself to you." We spent the rest of the meal in an uneasy silence. Afterwards, he brushed me off with a curt goodbye. I watched him disappear into the darkened streets, my head spinning and my chest feeling uncomfortably tight. I didn't see him for days. He ignored my texts and calls. Then one evening, Naomi came home looking grim. "Ryan's father withdrew the complaint," she announced. "No one really knows why, but there's talk around the station. People suspect he was bought off or threatened. The stepmother is still missing. The father refuses to elaborate." My blood went cold. So Ryan might still be involved somehow? Naomi placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "We don't know. Maybe she left him and Ryan had nothing to do with it. Maybe Ryan really did lure her away. But right now, there's no case." Katie Cedarberg, a Minnesota woman, was stalked by her ex-boyfriend Mark Lasik after ending their relationship due to his controlling behavior. Lasik's harassment escalated, culminating in him setting her house on fire on August 22nd while she was inside. Police arrested him shortly after, noting a strong gasoline odor on his clothing. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison for arson and stalking.
Did you subscribe? No? Oh my God, hit that subscribe button now.
My range of view was still affected by the rugged sunlight that had beaten my brows after 5 hours at the beach. Dark little patches and starry figures appeared on the corner of my vision, but I was happy I'd gotten a tan on my second day at the summer resort, which I had chosen for vacation. It was a paradise in every way I could imagine, and I had begun to plan another visit to the resort for my next trip. I stood at the reception and waited for my key with which I could return to my room. The water from the beach called my attention. It was washing noises up the bank and down back into the sea. What remained of this was the wind from the ocean billowing into the alfresco reception, which was held in place by the wooden beams. "I'm sorry, it's only going to take a moment," the receptionist said, a rural-looking man with a stubbled beard. He smiled with his eyes, and I returned with a gesture awkwardly, peeling my hair away from my face. He leaned over the counter and started tapping his finger on the desk and using his other hand to glide over the book in search of my name and my belongings, which had been brought from my room to the beachfront. His tappings soon turned rhythmic, and for a moment, I suspected he had become lost in the musicality. "Gemma?" he asked. I nodded. His grin turned fuller. He leaned away from the counter with all his presence. He shot one glance under the counter and provided my possessions wrapped in a cloth. I offered my word of gratitude as I picked up my clothes and received my keys to my room. The thoughts that occupied my mind had been of work and relaxation, nothing but those that I had failed to realize when I was being followed. I had gone into my room in the resort and had prepared for a shower when I heard someone knock on the door. It perplexed me because I didn't expect anyone to find me here. It was the summer holiday and I had 3 weeks of it for myself. Who's there? I asked. Johnny, he said at first. Realizing the consternation in my silence, he cleared his throat. From the reception? You forgot something. I felt the muscles in my head tick as I read myself mentally through the things I knew I had brought with me. I hesitated to open the door as I was still in towel. I'm coming in, he said, and there I was, stupefied to silence in the summer heat when I heard the door to my room click open. The air stopped in my chest, and a lump formed in my throat, swinging back and forth as oxygen pressed itself into my lungs involuntarily. I froze in place as sheer panic overcame me. He pushed the door with his shoulder and barged in. What the are you doing? I cussed, mustering up a fragile front of confidence. The breeze that whirled into the room came heated. It carried the smell of his skin and made my stomach churn. The rooms of the resort were large, but the pressure of our enclosed space kicked in. I could see the walls pull closer, wobbling unsteadily like animated figures. I started to pant in desperation. He noted my eyes and how I looked to the door. He smirked, and with a sly movement of his feet behind him, he pushed the door shut. I swallowed and twitched because the hardened saliva that sank to my stomach hit painfully. I opened my mouth to cuss him out again, then I stopped. His hands went swiftly into his pocket and then out. He swiped his wrist, and a pocket knife emerged from nothingness. The rays of sun that came into the house through the window frames caught the going of the steel and reflected it into my eyes. My knees rocked under the weight of my body. My bare toes on the ground clenched and my muscles spasmed. You comply with me and give me that, he warned, gesturing to my abdomen with the knife. I will let you leave peacefully. If you do not comply, he swiped his blade across the empty air, and the message was understood. He did not have to say it out loud. His fierce eyes betrayed its meaning well and purposefully. My life flashed before my eyes. I tightened my fingers up to gain control. Please, I begged him, stepping backwards as he approached with the knife, enclosing me in the corner. My life was all in his hands to decide, and like a manipulative predator, every step his feet took backed me into a corner. To my left of the door was the bathroom. I knew that stepping into the bathroom was damning his warning, but my mind was racing quicker than I could contain. I pleaded again and stepped even further backwards. Shh. His index fingers striped his lips. I'll put my knife in your stomach and pull out your guts like the others before you. Then I'll your corpse. His words drew vividly in my mind, casting a gory scene that I knew was a possibility with the manner in which he held the knife. The stability of his gaze and the determination of each stride informed me that this was not his first. I turned to my left, and in a flash, dashed into the bathroom. I felt his breath coming down my neck, the closing gap between us. Then, a smashing wind followed. The sensation was as though I had been pricked when his knife slashed my hand. The wound was shallow because I had dodged the focus of the blade, but it still bled. I screamed for help as far as my voice could carry me as I pushed my body to hold the door shut when he started to nudge it violently. The assuredness of my own existence hung by a thin thread, and everything flashed by my eyes so fast. I sobbed and stared all around the bathroom for something to defend myself with. I found nothing. My eyes fell onto the bathtub, and I imagined myself chopped up with his knife, made to lay dead in that tub. I shook my head. I could tell when he moved away because the weight on the door was lighter. Suddenly, he was back, barging against the door. I staggered backwards. Please, I begged. His weight was gone again. I shut my eyes and counted my breath, desperate to surrender. If it meant a return to the more merciful death which he assured me. I pulled my weight off the door and pulled the door open. A strange thing happened because he ran too quickly with no impediment on his path. He jammed his way through and stumbled with a violent bang into the bathtub's face first. His body went limp. Much to my surprise, he was dead. The horror episode of my summer vacation was over as strangely as it had begun.